Hey, we are back with another video, and this time an actual project, not just an update. A while ago I had already mentioned that I was gonna move the floating dock over to the other side, and this is the start of that video. I didn't do it all in one day, but this is where we started off, and right here I still had a whole lot of hope that I was gonna be able to finish this project with the tools that I have. But I soon started to realize that I was gonna need something a little bit more than what I actually had with me. But let's get to digging, and very quickly realized that this is gonna be an issue digging it just with the spade. There's water coming to it, and it's a little bit annoying trying to get everything out. So we borrowed a special spade for digging post holes from a friend here close by. And one of my principles in life is if I get to borrow something, obviously we're either going to bring it back in the same condition or have it in a little bit better condition than what we borrowed it in. And since it was missing a bolt right here, it made it really hard to work with. And also, it's an easy fix, so we're just going to add another bolt to it, fix it up, get it done, doesn't cost all too much. And since we got to borrow it, having it in a little bit nicer condition than beforehand doesn't hurt either. And since we have water coming into that hole right there, we are gonna start by emptying it out, and then we can continue our digging process. Now in a little while I will show you the actual little stream, or I guess not sure what you would call it, but the little place where the water is running into that hole, and you'll see why it is actually gaining water so quickly. But right here we take out the loose dirt from the bottom of the hole, and then we're going to loosen it up again with our spade. Take out more water from the bottom right there. As you can see, the hole is getting deeper, so I am making progress, which is actually great, but this took a lot longer than I had expected. And my spade is now almost completely gone, which means we are close to where I want to be. And just like that, within a couple of minutes, we had our hole dug. Well, no, not really. This took like hours. But hey, we got it done. We have it deep enough. And so here is the reason why it was filling up with water. So as you guys can see, the hole right there. I think I have it deep enough now. Now there is a water leak from up there somewhere. So I'm guessing this whole beach area kind of stores water. And with that, it makes it really hard to dig because it just keeps filling up. I've emptied it a couple of times now already, and with my special spade that I borrowed from Elmer Friesen, Living Springs Water Park, really amazing guy. I think I finally got the post deep enough. I had planned it a little bit deeper, but now while looking at it and while I'm actually digging, I think it's gonna be deep enough to hold the dock in place. So if you are still watching this, I must applaud you. You just watched the guy dig himself a hole, which he can, basically fit into at this point, almost at least. But with that said, let's get this whole thing finished up, wrapped up. Let's add the post into the hole there as well. And I did take out the water, but as you will see in a little bit, I don't know if it really made much of a difference, because in the end we had a lot of water that just filled up the hole again. But as we added the sand, it started to come out, and we gave it a bit of time to dry out as well and to settle in. So, in the end it did work out. With this hole now filled in, we have the whole post drying out. And with that done, we can now start moving the dock over onto this side of the dock area. I guess we can move the floating dock over to this side. You know what I mean. Just watch the video if you want to see what happens. So to get started on our second part of moving the dock over to the other side, we're gonna just unhook it from the chains right here, which we had placed there. And on the other side we have two cement buckets, which are pretty heavy to keep them in place. And we're probably gonna put those in a different place later on, since right now my plan is to use two chains on that dock to keep it in place. But let's move it to the other side. And as you can see, the current, or I guess the waves, are slowly pushing the dock in towards our shore, which is a little nicer than having to keep it from going out into the other direction. We're also gonna tie in the other end, since we're gonna be separating the two. That way neither of them can float away, Just a little bit of a safety measure, you know, just in case. We're gonna start taking them apart. They were just being held together with one piece of metal, which was held in with 4 bolts on either side. And as you can see, since they're not exactly even, there's also a piece of wood holding on to the metal on this side. Now, it was a little bit annoying that I was being pressed against our wall here, so a quick solution was to just tie it off onto the other post there, and we are good to go. Now we are gonna take this whole side apart. Once this side is done, we are gonna move over to the other side. Obviously, I didn't film the other side since I didn't want to place my camera in the water there, and I also don't have a proper angle from the other side. But with both of the irons taken off, the docks are now both separated and they are free to float from one another. We're gonna take the middle from the first dock and take the middle from the second dock. As you can see already, we are gonna be kind of switching them around a little bit so it makes a T shape. It helps, it doesn't bring it out quite as far into the lake, and secondly, you have a little wider of a platform at the front there, and it looks a little bit different than just having a straight out dock. I don't know, personally I just like the idea, and after it was finished, I really prefer the look of it. It doesn't look bad, it looks really good. Now we're just quickly gonna temporarily screw those in. So we now have screwed the 2 pieces together. They are lined up on center. We're gonna drill holes into that board right there. Same with that side right there in the middle. And with that, we are then gonna bolt those 2 together, which should give us a nice T dock, floating dock, and with that we should be done. Add a bit of support and it should be good to go. Oh yeah, and right here on this side we need a support for that post, and we need to put a chain where that bucket is onto that post. And that should basically be done for this dock. So welcome to the underside of the dock. Right there you can see the tubes, and let's just quickly darken that up. Out there you can see the lake. The idea is drill a couple more holes here, add 2 bolts to that side, 2 more bolts to that side. Out there, if you can focus, come on, you got it. On that side, what I have to do now is take off the nuts from the bolts on this side, since I have to separate them one more time to be able to drill. Hopefully it won't be too much of a pain in the but I got the nuts now taken off with the washers, and we should be able to separate it. And we're backing out of the whole area right now, trying not to get my camera wet. This is probably gonna be the only time you guys are gonna see the underside of this, because I really don't feel like getting my whole camera wet and risking it every single time. But yeah, right there is where we were just under lake. Not too bad for waves right now, it's pretty calm. Could be better, but it's also not too bad. Now with those first 2 bolts in place, we are now gonna start working on both of the sides. This was a little bit of a pain. I did have the idea of marking the holes on the other board there with some spray paint, which did actually work in the end. Now the tricky part was actually to get the bolts into place, since the holes, they lined up pretty well, but they were a little bit off, but we got it hammered in the end, which, it was nice. It was a lot easier than I had expected, but it was a little bit harder than I had hoped for. Let's put it that way. But in the end, we got everything hooked up, good to go. All that's left to do is adding 2 more tires up in the front here. Those we are putting in there just so that this whole concrete area doesn't chew up with the wood too bad. The other side, it already had chewed it up pretty bad from the way it was there before. Every time the waves go up and down, it kind of hits the wood on the concrete and it just kind of wrecks it. Now, the way I have mounted these tires, I don't think they're gonna hold all too long. The way it feels a little bit unstable with the screws that we put in there. Well, they're not really screws, and right there my camera froze. But as you can see, we have 2 tires mounted on the front. On one side we have the chain, on the other side we now currently have the buckets with string, but that's gonna get replaced. And we go for a dive. With that, this project is finished. On one hand, it worried me a lot more than it should have. On the other hand, it took a lot longer than I expected it to, but here we are. End of the day, everything worked out. I think it looks really good. With the chains on the other side, I think it'll be perfect. And I'll probably put those 2 buckets at the end just for a little bit extra support on those really windy days. Hope you guys enjoyed. If you'd like to see more videos like this, subscribe to the channel and stay tuned for our next update.